Before I was interrupted by my dog barking, I was talking about how the weights change the frequency that you see of the attendance variable. Now that some people are weighted up and some other people are weighting down, so you end up getting a slightly different distribution. It doesn't really change the data that much, but it does actually make the sample more representative of the population. Of course, the goal of looking at information in a sample is to extrapolate to the population, is to talk about the population. You don't really care about the sample itself. You only care about the population insofar as it represents, or I'm sorry, you only care about the sample insofar as it represents the population. So representative of the population is, of course, the goal. Note, too, that once I have a syntax file here, I really only needed to write frequencies attend once. I can actually, since I want to have the weighting really happen before the frequency, so I'm going to cut that and paste it above. I only need frequencies once. And then I can save this syntax file for use later. I'm going to save it over another syntax file. But you can have multiple syntax files, and as soon as you have the command frequencies attend, then of course I can go and run this another time, or I can erase attend and put it in another variable. This basically, the syntax command gives you a record of what you've done, especially if you don't keep the output, which is a lot larger and more unwieldy. So now I'm going to look at attend, and I'm going to look at what's called the joint distribution between attend and another variable, in this case year. I'm going to look at the crosstabs of year by attend. This is going to be a very large table, but this is just for the purposes of demonstration. You can see that across tabs, while the frequencies you're looking at one variable, with the crosstabs you're looking at what's called the joint distribution, which means two variables at the same time. So we see that, for example, the respondents in the year 1972, 149 of them said they never attended religious services. 100 people in 1972 said they attended more than once per week. If we're just looking at the numbers, we really can't say a whole lot about what's going on, and that's because different numbers of people were interviewed in each year, whereas 1,601 people answered the question in the year 1972. 4,493 people answered the question in 2006. So these numbers alone really can't be interpreted. They don't tell you anything. If you wanted to use this table to find out, well, has religious attendance changed over the last 30-some years, from 1972 to 2008, it's not going to be very easy to figure that out, due to the fact that they're just different people, different numbers of people interviewed in each year. So what I can do is add to the end of this crosstabs a command that tells SPSS to calculate percentages. Now I can choose to have row percentages or column percentages. There's a really important distinction here we want to keep in mind. Row percentages calculate, in this case, it would calculate the percentage of people within each category of religious service attendance for each year. So, in other words, it would calculate 149 divided by 1601, and then multiply that 100 times 100 to get the percentage. It would be 132 divided by 1601 for the percent times 100 to get the percentage in that column. If I did instead column percentages, then it would be calculating the percentage in each cell out of the totals in the column. So you would have something like, you would have the percentage of people within the people who said they attended less than once a year, what percentage answered the question 1972. It doesn't really make any sense. What makes sense is the row percentages. That is, among the respondents in 1972, what percentage of them said that they attended less than once per year? That obviously makes a lot more sense than asking among the people who attended less than once a year, what percentage responded in 1972. So that's why I'm not going to do column percentages. I would do row percentages. If you did column percentages and you looked at that, you could probably figure out that it's really not telling you much of anything. When you get row percentages, that means that all of these percentages here are going to add up to 100% within each column, or I'm sorry, within each row, rather. If you get column percentages, all of the percentages are going to add up to 100 within the column. So if I do the row percentages here, now instead of getting actual just frequencies, the frequencies are replaced with percentages. And now I can get some sense of whether there's been change over time. Because now, for example, I can say that in 1972, about 6.2% of people said they attended services more than once per week. That number was equal to 7.8% in 2008. The totals at the bottom are simply the total just for the entire sample. And you can see there's 100% at the end of each row. So the last total column is all 100% because these numbers are adding up to 100% within each row. Okay, just for the purposes of demonstration, if I did it wrong, and I put column percentages, now the percentages are adding up to 100 within each column, but they really aren't telling me anything because it doesn't say anything to say that among the people who, for instance, attended religious services more than once per week, 3.8% answered in 2008. That just doesn't make sense. So it's really important whenever you're doing a cross-tabulation to pay attention to which type of percentage makes sense. It differs in different, it differs depending on the kind of analysis you're looking at. And so this table I can delete by highlighting it and just clicking on delete. And focus then on this main table. Problem with this table, of course, is it's way too large to cut and paste into any sort of report or paper. And so what we need to do now is to manipulate the data, create some new variables in order to make this a little bit easier to read. And that's what I'm going to do in the next tutorial.